In the early hours of a quiet morning in London, a man sat alone in front of a computer screen. The room was small, the connection was slow, and the system he was inside was not supposed to be accessible to anyone like him. He wasn't wearing a uniform. He didn't work for a government agency. He wasn't following orders. He was just looking, searching, scrolling through directories that, by all official accounts, did not exist. Years later, he would claim that in those moments, he saw something that fundamentally changed his understanding of reality. Not a weapon, not a battle plan, but words. Non-terrestrial officers, a list of ships that belonged to no known navy. No country, no earthly fleet. And then, the connection dropped. This is the story of Gary McKinnon, and the question of whether curiosity alone can make someone dangerous. Gary McKinnon was not raised in secrecy. He wasn't trained in intelligence work. He didn't attend elite schools or military academies. He grew up working class in the United Kingdom, with an interest in computers and music. Friends describe him as quiet, thoughtful, often obsessive in the way only deeply curious people can be. He worked as a systems administrator, a job that, at the time, required patience more than brilliance. This was the late 1990s. The internet was young. Government networks were expanding faster than they were being secured. And for someone who knew where to look, doors were left open. Gary McKinnon was fascinated by one question above all others. Was the government hiding evidence of extraterrestrial life? Not in a science fiction sense, but in the bureaucratic sense. In filing cabinets, in databases, in the quiet places where inconvenient truths are stored and forgotten. He didn't believe answers would come from the sky. He believed they would come from servers. Between 2001 and 2002, Gary McKinnon began accessing U.S. military and NASA computers. Not through sophisticated malware, not through zero-day exploits, but through weak passwords, default logins, systems that assumed no one would try. He later described it as wandering through empty hallways. No alarms, no resistance, just information. He searched for keywords: UFO, disclosure, non-terrestrial. For a long time, he found nothing. Then one night, according to his account, he opened a file that made him stop scrolling. A spreadsheet. At the top, a title: Non-terrestrial officers. Below it, names, ranks, but no service branches that matched any known military. In another system, he claimed to find a list of ships. Not submarines, not carriers, ships with no national identifiers, no Earth-based fleet assignments, and images, low-resolution photographs, allegedly stored on NASA servers, showing objects in space that appeared smooth, metallic, and unlike conventional spacecraft. He did not download them. He did not save them. The connection was too slow. The system lagged. And then, without warning, access was lost. He never got back in. There are two immediate reactions to Gary McKinnon's story. The first is belief, that an outsider accidentally stumbled into a classified truth, that secrecy failed, and that what he saw was real. The second is skepticism, that technical jargon was misunderstood, that databases were misread. That belief shaped interpretation, and both reactions matter, because Gary McKinnon never produced evidence. No screenshots, no files, no recovered data, only testimony. And yet, what followed was disproportionate to a misunderstanding. In 2002, U.S. authorities noticed unusual activity. Military systems had been accessed, files deleted, networks disrupted. The damage was estimated at hundreds of thousands of dollars. Gary McKinnon was identified, and suddenly, he was no longer a curious civilian. He was described as the biggest military hacker of all time. The timing mattered. This was post-9/11 America. Cyber intrusion was no longer an inconvenience. It was a threat. The United States demanded extradition. They wanted him to stand trial on American soil, facing decades in prison, potentially for life. Gary McKinnon did not run. He stayed in the UK. As years passed, the legal process dragged on. His mental health deteriorated. He was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, a condition marked by intense focus, difficulty with social cues, and obsessive interests. The same traits that may have driven his curiosity now made incarceration especially dangerous. Doctors warned of suicide risk. His mother fought publicly to stop the extradition. The case became less about hacking and more about punishment. Why, many asked, Was no plea deal offered? Why no UK trial? Why the insistence on making an example? Years later, the world began to change. The US Navy released footage of unidentified aerial phenomena. Pilots spoke publicly. Government agencies acknowledged unknowns. Nothing confirmed extraterrestrial life. But something shifted, and Gary McKinnon's claims resurfaced. Were his descriptions crude misunderstandings? Or early glimpses of programs still hidden? Could non-terrestrial officers mean something else entirely? Or was the phrase exactly what it sounded like? No answers were given. No files released. No official refutation of the specific claims. Only silence. In 2012, the UK government blocked Gary McKinnon's extradition, citing human rights concerns. After 10 years of legal limbo, the case ended. No trial. No verdict. No determination of truth. Gary McKinnon walked free. The files he claimed to see remain unseen. And the question remains unresolved. If Gary McKinnon was lying, then this was the most expensive misunderstanding in cybercrime history. If he was mistaken, then secrecy protected nothing but embarrassment. And if he was telling the truth, then the most extraordinary discovery of our time was dismissed as a mental health footnote. This is not a story about aliens. It is a story about access, about secrecy, and about what happens when an ordinary person looks where they were never meant to look. Some files are never meant to be downloaded, and some questions are never meant to be answered.